You are not weak because you are afraid. You are afraid because you are standing right next to your potential. And if you have ever searched for how to overcome fear or transform anxiety into power, this message is for you. Fear does not just stop you from living, it disguises your calling as danger. It appears at the exact door your soul is ready to walk through. And most of us spend our whole lives walking away from it. But here is the truth few people know. Where your fear is, your task is. Carl Jung called it the hidden assignment of the soul. If you can learn to move toward that fear, not away from it, you will uncover your purpose faster than years of searching ever could. If you have ever felt stuck in the same emotional loop, or trapped in an unending cycle of hesitation and self-doubt, if you have ever wondered how to overcome fear or why it keeps showing up right before every breakthrough, stay with me. Because within the next 15 minutes, I am going to share a shift that will completely change how you see fear, and how, in just 3 seconds, you can transform that fear into energy, clarity, and action. Most people think fear is a wall, but what if fear is a doorway? A secret entrance to the part of you that still sleeps. You have heard the phrase, follow your passion. But Jung would say, follow your fear, because where your fear lies, your purpose hides. Think about it. The conversation you keep avoiding, the project you keep postponing, the dream that feels too big to deserve you. They all share one thing in common. Your fear guards them like a dragon protecting treasure. Fear does not mean stop. It means something sacred is here. And by the end of this video, you will see why that racing heartbeat is not a warning. It is a compass. And once you understand how to read it, it will point you directly to your purpose. Now, I want to share a deeply personal experience of mine. One that completely changed the way I see fear in myself, and one that I hope will do the same for you. A few years ago, life handed me a task disguised as a nightmare. It was during what I call my transition year, a job that looked almost perfect on paper, except for one detail. It required me to face my deepest fear. Speaking up in meetings, negotiating on the spot, and presenting in front of people. That week, everything I dreaded collided at once. A major client crisis, back-to-back meetings, no time to prepare, no chance to polish my answers. And the worst part, my boss joined every single one. Every morning I walked into the room appearing calm, while inside my heart was pounding like a drum. My boss sat beside me, quietly taking notes as I tried to hold my ground and respond to questions I had not rehearsed for. By midweek, I was certain I would fail. But somewhere between one meeting and the next, something shifted. I stopped fighting the fear. I let it exist, like a wave passing through me. And as I did, a strange calm arrived. Words began to flow, not from my head, but from a deeper place that did not need permission. For the first time, I was not performing competence. I was simply being it. When the final meeting ended, my boss turned to me and said, "That was one of the best sessions I have ever witnessed." It hit me then. This week I had called my worst was actually the doorway to my best. The fear that had threatened to drown me was the same current that carried me forward. Fear was not trying to destroy me. It was trying to deliver me to a version of myself I had not yet trusted enough to meet. Public speaking was not my weakness. It was one of my greatest strengths, hidden beneath self-doubt. Fear had never been protecting me from danger. It had been protecting me from expansion, holding the door closed until I was ready to walk through. That year, each presentation, each trembling moment, and every unexpected compliment slowly rewrote my story. I realized I was not just afraid of speaking. I was afraid of being seen, afraid of failing. But most of all, I was afraid of unlocking the power within me, afraid of the uncertainty of who I might become once I stepped into it. If this is resonating, take a breath. Notice where fear lives in your body right now, because what comes next will change how you relate to it forever. As that worst week became the best of my career, I began to understand something philosophers and mystics have long taught: that life itself is empty of fixed meaning, and that every event gains significance only through the meaning we give it. Viktor Frankl wrote, "Between stimulus and response there is a space. In that space lies our power to choose our response, and in our response lies our growth and our freedom." That week was neutral until I labeled it. My fear was not destiny. It was data. It was not the event that defined me. It was the interpretation I gave it. The same adrenaline that made my hands tremble was the same surge that helped me think on my feet. That is when I realized something profound. Fear and excitement, they are almost identical. The difference is not in the body, it is in the meaning the mind gives it. Label the surge as danger, and you shrink. Label it as possibility, and you rise. That shift changed everything for me. The week that once symbolized dread became a doorway to freedom. Because when you strip away the labels, life itself becomes a canvas of pure potential. And even fear turns sacred when met with awareness. That is how we begin to turn fear into purpose. That realization opened a door I did not know existed. I began to see that fear is not just an emotion. It is a messenger from the unconscious, a signal that something within you is asking to evolve. Carl Jung called this process individuation, the lifelong work of integrating every hidden part of ourselves until we become whole. He believed that what we fear most is often the very thing our psyche is trying to bring into consciousness. In other words, fear points directly to the fragment of our potential waiting to be reclaimed. So when fear arises, it is not saying stop, it is saying pay attention. Your fear is not blocking the path, it is the path. Modern psychology now confirms what Jung intuited a century ago. When you feel fear, your body releases adrenaline and cortisol, the same chemistry that floods your system when you feel excited. Your heart races, your breath quickens, your senses sharpen. The body does not know the difference between fear and excitement. It is the mind that decides which story to tell. Label that surge as danger, and you spiral into anxiety. Label it as anticipation, and the same surge becomes power. This is how elite athletes, performers, and leaders train themselves to thrive under pressure, not by eliminating fear, but by reinterpreting its signal. They understand that the body's alarm system is neutral. It is our interpretation that determines whether we contract or expand. Fear, then, is not a wall to climb. It is a current to surf. The moment you stop resisting it and start riding it, the energy that once felt paralyzing becomes propulsion. And if you trace that current long enough, you will discover something extraordinary. On the other side of fear is not emptiness. It is integration. It is the reunion with the parts of yourself you abandoned long ago because someone once told you they were too bold, too loud, too much. This is what Jung meant when he said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." Each fear you face is a doorway back into your own wholeness. Walk through enough of them, and you stop living by avoidance and start living by awareness. That worst week ever taught me how to turn fear into power. And it is why I created what I now call the 3-second shift. A simple method to overcome fear instantly. And it works every time. But first, let me tell you a question I ask myself every time I am paralyzed with fear. When fear shows up, the mind wants to escape it. But what if, instead of running, you simply asked it a question that melts its power in seconds? What is the worst that can happen? It sounds simple, almost cliché, but if you ask it sincerely and keep asking, It becomes one of the most liberating practices you can ever do. When fear says, "You will fail," you ask, "Then what?" When it warns, "They will judge you," you ask, "Then what?" When it screams, "You will lose everything," ask again, "Then what?" Keep going until the story collapses. You will realize that 90% of fear lives in imagination. The worst rarely means death. It usually means discomfort, change, uncertainty, and you have survived all of those before. Each "then what?" pulls another mask off the illusion, because fear only controls you while it stays unspoken. Once you articulate it, you shrink it back to human size. Seneca, the Stoic philosopher, once said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." Thousands of years later, neuroscience agrees. The amygdala, the brain's fear center, fires the same way whether you are standing on a real cliff or just imagining one. So when you picture catastrophe, your body lives it as truth. That is why avoidance feels like safety. You think you have escaped, but your nervous system is still trapped inside the fantasy of failure. The only way out is through. Face the image, name it, breathe through it, and watch how quickly it loses its color. Every myth carries this same lesson. The hero always faces the cave, the labyrinth, the monster, not because they enjoy danger, but because each confrontation reveals a truth they could not see from safety. The dragon is never random. It is always personal. It guards the exact treasure you have been pretending you do not need. Courage is not slaying the dragon. It is seeing yourself inside it. The parts of you that trigger fear are the parts asking for recognition. Integrate them, and fear becomes fuel. Reject them, and fear becomes fate. When fear shows up, most people freeze or overthink. But fear does not need analysis. It needs direction. Now, here is the simple 3-second technique I personally created over time. Whenever fear shows up in my life, I call it the 3-second shift, a 3-step practice that transforms fear into usable energy. It takes only 3 seconds, but it changes everything. Step 1, name it. The instant fear rises, say to yourself, "This is energy, not I am scared, not something is wrong." Just label it for what it truly is, raw energy. That single word stops the mental spiral and reframes the sensation. Step 2, ground it. Feel your feet on the ground or your palms against a surface. Press gently until you sense the texture of the present moment. Let your body know, "I am safe right now." When the body anchors, the mind quiets. Step 3, redirect it. Take an intentional, slow inhale and say, "Use this." Let the current move toward what matters. The sentence you were afraid to say, the email you were avoiding, the step you have been delaying. That is how energy becomes momentum, and how fear transmutes into power. Name it, ground it, redirect it, 3 seconds. That is all it takes to turn fear from chaos into clarity. Because intensity itself is neutral. It is the direction you send it that decides whether it becomes anxiety or aliveness. Every time you practice the 3-second shift, you teach your nervous system that expansion is safe, that fear is not danger, it is depth. And the more you practice it, the faster you will realize fear was never asking you to stop. It was asking you to wake up. And here is the beautiful paradox. Every time you face fear consciously, your world expands. What once triggered panic becomes your new baseline for calm. Each conscious encounter widens your range for life. Courage is not the absence of fear, it is intimacy with it. You learn its rhythm until its pulse becomes familiar, almost friendly. You stop asking, "How do I get rid of fear?" and start asking, "What is fear showing me about who I can become?" Because beneath every fear is a quiet invitation. Will you allow yourself to grow beyond this version of you? When you say yes, not loudly, not dramatically, but with a single breath and a steady heart, the universe rearranges itself. And when you start seeing fear this way, something subtle but profound begins to happen. Life stops feeling like a series of random tests and starts revealing itself as a carefully designed curriculum, one written entirely for your highest good. Every challenge, every heartbreak, every trembling moment is not punishment. It is precision. Each one arrives to stretch you toward the truth of who you are. My teacher used to say, "See every obstacle as your highest good." At first, I did not understand. But once I began living it, everything shifted. Instead of dwelling in fear, I started finding momentum within it. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" I started asking, "What is this trying to awaken in me?" Fear stopped feeling like a sign to retreat and started feeling like a signal to expand. Fear is not evidence of weakness. It is evidence of evolution. It means you have reached the frontier of what you know, and life is asking if you are ready for more. So instead of saying, "I am scared," try saying, "I am being stretched." You are not falling apart. You are unfolding. You are being shaped by something infinitely intelligent, something that only ever works for your highest good. When you begin to trust that, you stop fighting the current and start flowing with it. You stop dwelling in fear and start using it as fuel. And in that moment, what once felt unbearable becomes the very force that carries you home to yourself. So the next time fear knocks, do not close the door. Breathe, name it, ground it, redirect it. Say to yourself, "This too is for my highest good." 3 seconds, that is all it takes to change your trajectory. Because fear is not the end. It is an invitation. And all it takes to accept it is the 3-second shift. If this message spoke to your soul, share it with someone who is facing their own fear, because awareness spreads faster than fear ever could. See you next time.